am the Pro Money Geek General, Mr. Mells, and I'm back at it again with some more pointers and actual tips and specific things that you need to do when you create your LLC if you plan on being classified as an employee of that entity, as opposed just to creating a business and having the income flow through that business onto you, which means you would still have to classify it or claim it on taxes 100%. So if you made $100,000, you're pretty much going to have to pay taxes on that $100,000 because it's going to pass through your LLC because of your tax classification. Keep in mind, I'm not a tax attorney, I'm not a CPA. These are just things that I've learned along the way and things that I implement in my business since I choose to have an S-class corporation or an LLC. I choose that because all of the payroll, you do have to include payroll taxes when you choose this election. That's to keep everything in order and very specific when it comes to paying taxes so you can get the biggest benefit out of it and there's no mishaps or anything like that. But you do get the biggest draws, okay? So what I mean by that is when you have your LLC and you have a S Corp classification attached with the LLC, that means you can have payroll taxes. You would have that tax. It's a bill associated with that, of course, but you can set it up through your bank or a third-party service that actually offers those services, okay? So, and what that does is allow for taxes to be taken out properly, state, federal, whether it's medical, insurance, things like that, unemployment tax, all of those specific taxes that you want to be gainfully employed as an actual bona fide employee. Now, the benefit of all of that, say if you start a company and your company folds, if you were paying into the insurance tax, the unemployment tax, then once it folds, you would be able to claim unemployment. Not only that, but even in the insurance realm, you would be able to actually set up insurance benefits directly through your company and pay into that insurance claim. That insurance. So, and it's a beautiful thing. You can go to irs.gov, find out all that you need to know, what you can do and can't do. But it's just like, you want to play the game the right way just to make sure you can benefit the right way as well, all right? So this is Form 2553, the election by a small business corporation. Now, this is an actual video that we're going to critique. I just found it. It's a content creator on YouTube. So we're going to do this reaction and I'll be pausing it throughout just so you can get, if I find out any tidbits, any jewels, any gems, I'll pause the video and continue. But I do thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification, like button. Here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Priyanka Prakash, Senior Staff Writer at Fundera. Today I'll show you how to fill out IRS Form 2553, Election by a Small Business Corporation. The most common use for this form is for a limited liability company, LLC, or C corporation that wants to be taxed as an S corporation. If you correctly complete and submit this form on time, the IRS will treat your business as an S Corp for federal income tax purposes. This means the profits and losses of your business will pass through to the owner's personal tax returns, and the business itself will not pay an income tax. Now, before you even fill out this form, you should make sure that you meet the requirements for electing S Corporation tax status. There's a long list of requirements that you can find in the IRS guide that accompanies this form, but the main requirements are that your company can have no more than 100 shareholders, only one class of stock, and no non-resident alien shareholders. Okay, let's get to the form now.
All right, I wanted to pause it there. All of that was very important. Otherwise, you would get a kickback once you submit the form to IRS before you even begin your journey. So make sure you meet those minimal qualifications, and then you can proceed.
Part 1, election information, starts with some basic business information, such as your business name, address, and EIN number. If you currently have an LLC which does not have an EIN number, you'll need to apply for one first using IRS Form SS4, before you fill out this form. I'm going to provide this information for a sample business called ABC Bakery, which is an LLC. And I'll assume that ABC Bakery does have an EIN already. Next, you'll provide the date and state of incorporation. That wording makes sense if you're currently a C corporation, but it's a little misleading if you're filling out this form as an LLC because technically you're not an incorporated business. However, what this is getting at is simply the date that you registered your business with the state or filed your articles of organization or articles of incorporation. In this case, let's say that ABC Bakery registered with the state on January 5th, 2018, and they registered in New York State. After applying for an EIN, if your business changed its name or address, you would check off the applicable box in item D. If not, skip this item and move on to item E. Item E is important because you'll need to provide the tax year in which your S Corp election is to take effect. If you meet all the requirements for an S Corp, you should file Form 2553 no later than 2 months and 15 days after the start of the tax year in which you want your election to take effect. That is March 15th for most businesses that follow a calendar tax year.
That's very important, guys. Now, if you don't file that in time, you will be not allowed to file as an S corporation for that year. So you definitely want to make sure you meet the deadlines. All right, here we go.
You can also submit the form at any time during the preceding tax year. Let's say that's the case for ABC Bakery LLC and that the owner wants the S Corp election to take effect in 2020. In item F, choose your business's tax year, which for most companies will just be an ordinary January 1st to December 31st calendar tax year. You might choose a fiscal year if you have a seasonal business in which the tax year ends on a day other than December 31. For item G, remember that you can't have more than 100 shareholders in an S corporation. However, you can treat spouses or members of the same family as one shareholder for the purposes of this count. If that's how you'll be counting certain shareholders, check off this box next to item G. In item H, provide the name and title of the business contact person. For most of you watching this video, that's probably you who is filling out the form. In our example, we'll say that the business contact person is Betty Business, who's the CEO of ABC Bakery. You should also provide the phone number. Item I is where you would provide an explanation if you are filing Form 2553 after the deadline. In order for the IRS to accept your late filed Form 2553, you have to provide reasonable cause for the delay. For example, maybe you did not understand the rules about the deadlines or your accountant failed to file on time. The IRS will often accept such explanations as reasonable cause from a small business. At the bottom of the form, don't forget to sign, date, and provide the title of the officer filling out the form. You can't sign and date until you print out the form, so I'm going to leave that blank for now and just provide Betty Business's title. Before you continue, make sure that on the next page, you provide your business name and EIN again at the top so the IRS doesn't lose any of your paperwork. In this table, you'll enter the name and address of each shareholder who's required to consent to your S Corp election. Your corporate bylaws or operating agreement should identify who is required to provide consent. But in most cases, you'll need approval from all current shareholders or owners of the business.
See, that's very important. Again, look back at my previous video. I was letting you know about the operations agreement. That's your Bible of the business. That's your operations, how things run. Very important. So if you ever become legally obligated or have to go to court for any reason, you will have to possibly provide or present the operations agreement. So just make sure that everything is taken care of. I also provided you source or resource to get your um, form constructed. That's what you would need. Okay. So here we go.
And they'll need to sign the form in this section. If you need more rows than what is provided on this form, simply print out additional copies of this page. Most of you watching this video will probably just fill out a few of these lines. Now, if you're structured as an LLC, you don't have shareholders, you have members of the business, and you would provide their names and percentage of ownership instead of share information in this section. In this case, I'm going to assume that Betty and her business partner, Chris Corporate, are the only two owners of ABC Bakery, and they have a 60-40 ownership split. Here I'll provide information for both of them. I'll assume that Betty Business acquired her percentage of ownership on the day that ABC Bakery was formed. And I'm going to provide her social security number in column M. This last column is most important if the shareholder or owner is a company. If it's an individual, the tax year almost always ends on December 31. And that's it for the table in this case. You'd also want to remember to have both Betty and Chris sign here. Part 2 of Form 2553 applies to businesses that follow a fiscal tax year. You'd only fill out this section if you chose to check off either box 2 or box 4 in item F of Part 1. This might apply to seasonal businesses or to businesses whose primary shareholders follow a fiscal tax year. But most of you watching this video will follow a calendar tax year, and you can skip this part. Part 3 of Form 2553 applies only to businesses that are electing qualified subchapter S trust election under Section 1361D2 of the Federal Tax Code. In order to qualify for this election, you must have a trust which is a qualified shareholder of your business. In addition, corporate stock must have been transferred to the trust on or before the date on which the business makes its election to be treated as an S Corp. Most of you watching this video will skip Part 3. This part is more applicable to larger companies who have trusts as shareholders. Lastly, we come to Part 4. As long as you're filling out this form on time, you can skip Part 4. If you missed the deadline, however, then you're agreeing to each of the representations that's listed in this part. And that's it for Form 2553. You can mail or fax the form to the IRS as indicated for your state on the cover page of the form.
All right. So I'm going to stop it right there. But right at the cover page, you can see what state is applicable to you. The fax number is right to the right of it. And then pretty much that's it. See, it's pretty much cut and dry. But for those who may not be familiar with the form, you may have needed assistance or some direction how to fill it out correctly to prevent kickback or prolonging the election success. Okay, this is something that is extremely important, especially when it comes to the taxes of your business, to the write-offs, the applicable write-offs. The most important thing that this commentator said was, if you elect the S Corp, all of the taxes flows through to the members of the LLC. The actual bank account of the business does not get taxed. That's the important part. That's how you save the majority of your money. That's how you can reinvest the money into cash flow for your business and growing your business the right way. And then you're also paying taxes as an employee of your business. That's extremely important, extremely beneficial. And not only that, it's just the right thing to do for you, you know. And it's not anything that you would want to disregard. You don't want to be like the average person out here that's just creating LLCs and not really benefiting from it. And then you want to make sure it's set up the correct way anyway. At the end of the day, you're a business. You're not a person with the LLC trying to be a business. You can actually operate and be in operations. All right? Now, that's the important part. I thank you guys for tuning in. This is the General, the Pro Money Geek General, Mr. Mel's. And thank y'all for tuning in all the way to the end. I appreciate that very much. I'm glad you appreciate the content, because if you're like me, if you're a business or you're an aspiring business owner and you want to know how to do these things, this is it. I appreciate it. I'm out.